Humans, they'll cower at the first sight of battle, barked General Xerex of the Galactic Council. Scoffing at the newly arrived humans who had yet to step onto the war-riddled terrain, the council chamber buzzed with amused murmurs as his statement hung in the air, solidifying what every alien race believed about Earth's inhabitants. Soft, peace-bound creatures who stumbled into galactic warfare with the caution of a frightened animal. But the humans just stood there, calm and unflinching. "Earth species," began Counselor Breen of the Sari, a slender, silver-skinned figure with a voice like running water. "We appreciate your willingness to assist in this conflict, though we fully understand if you find it too overwhelming." The human at the front of the group, Lieutenant Mason Cole, seemed to suppress a smile. "Overwhelming? You're talking about facing off against the Drawn Empire?" he asked, his tone casual. General Xerex's scales rippled in irritation, turning a bright shade of violet. "The Drawn warriors are relentless," he retorted. "They show no mercy. Even the Fawns withdrew after a single engagement with them. What makes you believe humans, unarmored and flesh-bound as you are, would fare any better?" Lieutenant Cole paused, eyeing the council members as if sizing them up. His voice, steady and even, filled the echoing hall. "We've done our homework, General," he said, "and we've handled worse." A wave of suppressed laughter rustled through the assembly. The notion of humans, small squishy beings by galactic standards, braving the Drawn, a species notorious for their brutality and unmatched combat skill, was ludicrous to the Galactic Council. These humans were nothing more than fragile bones covered in a thin layer of skin. They lacked the reinforced exoskeletons of the Granny or the reflexive scales of the Zerath. No claws, no toxins, no armor that grew from their own bodies. Their evolutionary shortcomings made their survival improbable in this theater of war. "So," Lieutenant Cole continued, unfazed by the quiet ridicule, "what's the current situation with the Drawn?" Xerex narrowed his eyes. "They're advancing on 3 of our outpost planets. Our forces have been contained in all directions. Their artillery surpasses ours. Their troops far outnumber any of our species' best efforts." He looked down his nose at Cole, scales darkening in what appeared to be anger. "You really expect to make a difference?" The human officer just gave a single nod. "That's exactly what we expect." "What precisely are you planning to do?" inquired Counselor Breen, her expression one of patronizing curiosity. Lieutenant Cole's grin broke out then, unsettlingly wide. "We'll start by sending a small squad. We like to make sure we understand our opponents before we go all in." Breen tilted her head, frowning in confusion. "All in? So you're merely testing the Drawn? That sounds like a recipe for a massacre." Cole raised a finger. "See, that's the difference between us and most of the council here. We don't charge into battles blind. But when the time comes, we do go all in, and we don't hold back." Xerex's patience was thinning fast. "Enough with the cryptic responses. Do you really expect your small numbers to hold any ground against the Drawn?" he snapped, scales flaring again. Another human stepped forward, Captain Eli Brooks, eyes glinting with a mischief that the alien delegates struggled to interpret. "The Drawn haven't faced human warfare yet," he said. "You're about to witness tactics unlike anything you've seen before." The Galactic Council had convened in the Hall of Decisions to discuss possible tactical maneuvers, but the humans, it seemed, had their own ideas. General Xerex exchanged glances with Counselor Breen. The Sari's metallic eyebrows twitched as she suppressed a smirk. "This will be over quickly," she muttered. "Humans are a novelty at best," Captain Brooks continued, ignoring the dismissive looks. "In about 3 days, you'll hear back from our squad. And when we've got the lay of the land, we'll show you why humans don't back down when it counts." An uncomfortable silence followed. The humans had walked right into a death trap and still spoke with this strange, unnerving confidence. Xerex exhaled, clawed hands tightening at his side. "You've been warned. The Drawn will not show mercy. They do not negotiate. They do not leave survivors. I hope you understand what lies ahead." "Oh, we understand," Brooks replied with a level tone. "We've encountered our share of stubborn enemies." The council members resumed their seats, satisfied that they had at least tried to dissuade the humans from a course that would most certainly end in their annihilation. But as the humans exited the chamber, there was a lingering sense of unease. The way they walked, steady and clashed starkly with the narrative the council had written about them. 3 days later, a broadcast crackled through the Galactic Council's communication network. General Xerex, already convinced that the humans had perished, received the transmission with an indifferent sigh. "General Xerex here." "Sir," came the human voice, calm as a breeze. "This is Lieutenant Cole, reporting from the outpost." Xerex's eyes widened. He scrutinized the communication screen, expecting to see a plea for reinforcements or a list of casualties. Instead, Lieutenant Cole appeared, looking a bit dusty, perhaps a little roughed up, but nothing like what Xerex had expected from an encounter with the Drawn. "We've assessed their ground forces, sir," Cole continued, not missing a beat. "Our initial estimations were pretty accurate. They're clustered around their supply depot, and it seems they haven't encountered guerrilla tactics before." Xerex blinked. "Guerrilla tactics? Yes, sir," Cole responded. "We've been moving in smaller units, destabilizing their supply lines, cutting off reinforcements. They're not responding well." Xerex's scales darkened with disbelief. "And how many of your forces were lost?" Cole checked something off-screen. "Lost? None, General. But the Drawn have lost quite a few. Their command structure is surprisingly brittle once you get under their exoskeletons, so to speak." Xerex's jaw dropped. "You're telling me you managed to destabilize a Drawn front line without reinforcements?" "We do have reinforcements, sir," Cole said, flashing that uncanny human grin. "But we haven't needed them yet. Just thought you'd appreciate an update." The screen blinked off, leaving Xerex staring at his own reflection, his face a mask of incredulity. 3 hours after Lieutenant Cole's message, the Galactic Council convened in a frantic emergency meeting. The hollow screens displayed endless streams of data from the human skirmishes against the Drawn, columns of enemy forces strategically isolated and neutralized with astonishing precision. Alien delegates from every species watched in bewilderment as data continued to scroll by, indicating human success in areas previously deemed unwinnable. General Xerex had not moved from his seat since receiving the first update. His claws dug into the table as he struggled to process the information. How is this possible?" he muttered, staring blankly at the reports. Counselor Breen, seated beside him, tilted her head, eyes narrowing with curiosity. "They have no psychic shields, no advanced weaponry. They're using basic kinetic projectiles and explosives." She pulled up a close-up feed of a human soldier in action, leaning behind cover, firing short, controlled bursts, directing his comrades with hand signals. "This makes no sense," she whispered. Before she could analyze further, a voice crackled through the Council's secure line. "This is Captain Eli Brooks, reporting live from Drawn territory," he announced, his voice calm and clear. Xerex leaned forward. "Captain Brooks, I see your forces have made an impact. Care to explain?" The hollow display shifted to show Brooks, dressed in worn battle gear with the remnants of Drawn fortifications smoldering in the background. His face was dusty, but there was a satisfied gleam in his eye. "Well, General, let's just say the Drawn aren't big on adaptability. They've got a rigid hierarchy, and once we started dismantling their chain of command, the rest fell apart pretty quickly." He gestured behind him at the scattered Drawn remains, their armor cracked and useless. "Turns out they rely heavily on centralized orders. And without their officers barking instructions, they don't handle pressure well," Counselor Breen interjected, sounding equal parts fascinated and horrified. "You're telling me you've destabilized an entire battalion with just a handful of troops?" Brooks shrugged. "We've had some practice back on Earth. Guerrilla tactics, ambushes, coordinated strikes on supply lines. Humans can be, well, resourceful under pressure." Xerex's jaw clenched as he processed the implications. "Captain, are you aware that the Drawn have not been defeated in over 200 cycles?" Brooks gave a casual nod. "Yeah, we heard that. But you know, back on Earth, we faced some tough odds before. You could say it's a bit of a tradition for us to take on the impossible." "Tradition?" Breen echoed, bewildered. "War is a tradition for humans." The alien delegates exchanged glances, uncomfortable murmurs filling the room. Xerex's gaze narrowed as he scrutinized the human on the screen as though seeing him for the first time. He had dismissed the humans as primitive, fragile creatures, but now he saw them in a new light, a species that thrived on adaptability, driven by a stubborn will that defied logic. Captain Brooks gave a final, level look into the camera. "Let us know if there's another front you'd like us to handle. We've got plenty more where that came from." The screen flickered off, leaving the Galactic Council to sit in stunned silence, each alien re-evaluating their assumptions about the small, unassuming species that had just tipped the scales in a galactic war.